Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project is going to be joining us shortly to talk about Queers for Palestine. Yes, Queers for Palestine. You heard me correctly. These people, I guess, don't realize that they would be thrown off of buildings and their throats slit were they to live in Gaza. We'll get into that conversation with Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project a little later in the podcast. But first, I want to go over the Jackson 5. A lot has happened or transpired in the last 24 hours. It seems that news today breaks so quickly. Every hour. It's like you have to see what news is breaking, it appears. But there is, we'll give you the latest on the speaker's race, the House speaker's race, what's going on with that. Mike Johnson has become the speaker designate or nominee. There will be a floor vote from what I understand this afternoon. From what I'm hearing, things are eerily silent, meaning that it might be that Mike Johnson would be the next Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson is a conservative. He's a fantastic communicator. I don't know enough about him beyond that, but we'll get into that and kind of read what's out there. But I want to check his conservative rating. We will do that. But I've seen him on places like Fox and Newsmax, and he's a very effective communicator. He seems to be very conservative in his stance or in his position. So we'll see if he can unite Republicans behind him and get that lauded 217 votes that others had not been able to get to. There's also been an idea floating that both Jim Jordan and former Speaker McCarthy could somehow run the office of speaker, one to run and one to be an assistant. Or I don't think that should happen. I think that's complete and utter nonsense. I only think that's the establishment that would try to torpedo Jim Jordan. Quite frankly. So I want to stay away from that. All right, so today's show is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Again, if you go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square at the top of the page and enter my name, Carl. There's all types of deals available for you leading up to Christmas, all right? Or you can give them a call, 800-858-0263. We know what Mike Lindell brings to the table. He is an American patriot providing American jobs and American manufacturing, and the left is trying to take him down. And they're not just trying to take him down. If they were to take him down, they would take down those American jobs and they would destroy patriot business owners. That's what they want to do. They want to destroy the middle class. They want to destroy patriot business owners. Don't let them do it. Go to MyPillow.com, click on that radio podcast square, and do some Christmas shopping, some early Christmas shopping. Maybe someone's birthday is coming up, an anniversary. There are Giza Dream Sheets are 50% off. You got the MyPillow 2.0 dog beds, anything you need there. Anything that's available there, just use my name as the promo code, and there are deals that are even over 60% off. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl. All right, now let me get to the top five. And again, Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project will be joining us later to talk about this idea of Queers for Palestine. Anyway, all right, so nonetheless, I digress. Right now, Mike Johnson appears to be slated to be the Speaker of the House. At least he has gotten the vote so far. And again, Mike Johnson, if you've seen him on television, he comes off as, extremely conservative. I'm kind of surprised, but I think it would be good. I don't know enough about him except to say that I've watched his appearances on television for quite some time, and he's been good. The guy has been good. He's great at communicating. Let me just read part of this this is from Red State, if I could get rid of this ad, redstate.com. There's an eerie calm in the House ahead of today's speaker vote. This according to redstate.com. So we are in day 22 of there being no House Speaker, but for the first time since Matt Gaetz put forward his motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy from the Speaker's chair, the vibes, as the kids would say, feel immaculate. So Red State is basically saying that it feels like this one could actually happen. Now, I, for one, didn't, just to reiterate here, I wasn't a big fan of blowing up or vacating Kevin McCarthy, and not because I can't stand Kevin McCarthy. I think I couldn't stand the guy, and I never wanted him to be Speaker. That's why, if you listen to my podcast, when the 20 ganged up together and said, no, if Kevin McCarthy is going to be speaker, then we want these things, these concessions from him. It seems to me what they were trying to do, the rest of the conservatives, were to let Speaker McCarthy kind of hang himself because he wasn't following through on all of his promises. I believe that Matt Gaetz jumped the gun, kind of put us in a precarious position. I know there are people out there that say, hey, listen, we don't need a speaker. I don't want a speaker. And I understand that sentiment. And, and as I thought about it, I'm like, no, I want a speaker. You know why I want a speaker? Because the world is absolutely under fire, or on fire, I should say, and under fire, with Joe Biden in the White House. And I want someone out there that can offer a competing narrative and offer a competing vision, as well as someone that gets started on paying attention to races that we need to win across the country. And you don't get to do that without a speaker. So I wasn't. I was impressed by Kevin McCarthy, and that I was shocked at how well he performed in front of the cameras oftentimes. But unfortunately, behind the scenes, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. And he was still, omnibus bills and all that kind of stuff. But again, those other 20 that were with Matt Gaetz were just trying to give him enough rope to hang himself. And they figure what would happen was the consensus would be that it was time to get rid of Speaker McCarthy, and it was time to elect a conservative. Jim Jordan, again, stepped up to the plate. I was like, once Jim Jordan stepped up, I was like, I'm there. He is a fabulous communicator. He is a conservative warrior. He is a fighter. But I was in an X space yesterday, and Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch said, what Jim Jordan failed to do, he thought, was go to the floor and make a compelling case for his speakership and talk about all the things that we need to talk about, whether it's inflation, the weaponization of the deep state. I mean, make the argument and make it in full view where the American people could see it and hear it. And he thought that would have been enough to put him over the top. Jim Jordan mistakenly didn't do that, and I wish he would have. But Mike Johnson, again, appears to be gaining ground. And now going back to Red State just real quickly here. They say late last night, House Republicans voted for Mike Johnson to be their next speaker nominee. In the wake of that vote, there was no public dissension. There was no raging, highly critical post from Donald Trump on Truth Social. There was no talk of needing to bring in Patrick McHenry to fill an expanded role as Speaker pro tempore. There was a sense of unity among both the GOP conference and the loud voices on the internet. Even the Morning Insider newsletter betrayed the sense of calm coming out of D.C. This morning. So this may be the consensus guy. This is from Political's playbook this morning. It sure feels that way. Late last night, Mike Johnson became the latest GOP conference nominee. And what was different this time wasn't what was said, but what wasn't. No backbiting, no ultimatums, no snarky comments to reporters, just cheers and an overwhelming sense of relief. I also think a lot of people have been bombarding the phones of Washington, D.C. They're tired of this nonsense. Nobody wanted a rhino. Tom Emmer went down in flames relatively quickly yesterday. I mean, I was sitting out there tweeting. I know a lot of people were tweeting and calling. Nobody wanted Tom Emmer. And Kevin McCarthy, former speaker, had endorsed him. That was enough for me to stay away from him. But the guy has taken some has taken some weird views, in my opinion. He wanted the popular vote. Was my understanding, instead of the Electoral College, and some had argued, listen, that was taken out of context. I don't know. I don't know. But he had a 69% conservative rating, so I'm glad he's gone. No, it's not over yet, according to Political. 3 lawmakers voted present during a roll call poll of the conference, and 22 GOP lawmakers were absent, so it's possible there might be a decisive handful of never Mikes hiding out there. Again, he needs to get to 217. But we'll find out, because it appears that they're going to take this thing to the floor this afternoon. It sounds like this guy may have a good chance of becoming speaker. We won't know until this afternoon, but again, it's eerily quiet. All right, now, could we be in the midst, or could we be headed to World War III? I hope not with this guy in the White House, but I think that it is clearly possible with Joe Biden in the White House and in his administration, the administrative state that are running things behind the scene. So this was on the tip sheet this morning. U.S. troops attacked 13 times by terror groups. Dozens of U.S. soldiers have been injured. So Fox News reported this. U.S. troops that were positioned in the Middle East have been attacked 13 times in the last week with a mix of one-way drones and rockets, according to Pentagon officials. U.S. Department of Defense spokesman Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder confirmed Tuesday that troops in Iraq had been attacked 10 times between October 17th and 24th. So in the last week, have you guys heard anything about that? Well, during the same period, troops in Syria had been attacked 3 times. Pentagon officials said that all the attacks on U.S. troops have Iran's fingerprints on them, though there's no evidence at this time showing the country's leaders ordered the attacks. Guys, we know who's behind this. We know there's an alliance between China, Russia, and Iran. Joe Biden has set the world on fire. There's no doubt in my mind that while this fool is in office, China is going to try to take Taiwan, because why wouldn't they? They're going to make the same calculation that Putin did. They're not going to wait and see if a Trump or a DeSantis gets in office to go ahead and make their move. It would be foolish of them to do so. I mean, I hate to say it, but it would be foolish of them to do so. And at some point, things are going to get so out of control and worse that Joe Biden is going to have to react. And sadly, we have enough stuff brewing. The anti-Semitism that we're seeing in our own country is absolutely insane. There's no doubt that there are special interest aliens, over 70,000, that have come into our United States of America thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies. Guys, there's going to be a terrorist attack. Why wouldn't there be? Why wouldn't there be? And you have the U.S. military telling Israel how to fight their battles. We need to stay out of it, and we just need to let Israel handle their business. Let them take out Hamas. Let them take out Hezbollah. We need to let them handle their business. Guys, but they're civilians. Guys, I'm sorry. I am sorry. The only way to fight terrorists, actually, is to kill them. That's all they understand. And we know, sadly, that they use civilians as human shields. This is why people don't want war. Because the casualties will be massive. And they're disgusting. And they're evil. It looks horrible. Nothing about war is good. But if you're going to fight them, they need to be decisive, quick, and strong. And that's what Israel has to do. Joe Biden hasn't been right on anything when it comes to foreign policy, and he's not right now. There should be no ceasefire. We need to leave it up to Israel. If they decide to delay based on intelligence they have or that they've gathered where they can get some hostages out, so be it. But you see what Hamas is doing. They are slow walking the hostages releases. Over 200 over 200 hostages, Israeli hostages, and at least 10 American hostages that we know of. I'm not even sure that number is correct. I'm not even sure. There may be more Americans held hostage, probably more Americans missing. I don't know. But do you trust the Biden administration after they lied to us about not leaving any Americans behind in Afghanistan? You have Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida that has gotten out, I believe, 700 Americans out of Israel, flown them out so that they're not in a war zone. Oh man, this stuff is crazy. All right, and now here's something else that you need to know about, in my opinion. And it's going to get worse. Listen to this. Saudi Arabia intercepts missile headed toward Israel in show of historical support. So Saudi Arabia intercepted one of the cruise missiles fired toward Israel last week by an Iran-backed Houthi rebels. The Wall Street Journal reveals the U.S. was known to have shot down the other 4 missiles from the USS Carney guided missile cruiser, but Saudi involvement in the missile defense actions had been unknown until now. So Saudi Arabia's Patriot missile defense array is supplied by the U.S., and the U.S. has said the missiles were likely headed toward Israel. So that's a fascinating story because Saudi Arabia has been working with China lately. So it's really weird. But I mean, you're talking about reshaping the world under the Biden administration. The world, maybe some of our alliances will be reshaped as a result of this. There's no doubt about it in me mind. Okay, now what else do I want to go to or share with you just real quickly here? Man, that's a story. I'll be on Officer Tatum tonight, so we'll check that out. Check me out a little later there. Washington, D.C. mayor revokes laws put in place during George Floyd riots due to crime spree. So she must be trying to get reelected because that's the only time the left seems to care about. Reducing crime rates. And I got to say this. I know this is going to offend a lot of people, so what? But it's the truth. You should never elect Democrats. You should never elect left-wing radicals. I believe Mayor Bowser is one of those people. But there's also something about black females. Yes, I said it. Call me whatever name you want. Black females that run blue cities, where I think oftentimes they can be even worse. Because I think there's this, listen, they're mothers. A lot of them are mothers, right? And it's like, listen, slavery, and reparations and all this stuff plays into the woman's perspective. They tend to be more emotional. I think they tend to be more, they'll tend to lash out more. And I think oftentimes that's what we see in some of these mayors that are black females. Like the whole civil rights movement, slavery, all this kind of stuff, CRT, DEI, they've bought into it hook, line, and sinker. The idea that cops are bad and are out to, hunting down blacks, as LeBron James said. A lot of these, I believe, females buy into it even more than the males, and they feel obligated to protect their culture, their community, and they're just wrong. And I think that's what we see with Mayor Bowser. But anyway, she wants to get things under control. So after Washington, D.C. leaders pushed to defund police at the height of the BLM riots, the city's mayor is now pushing a new law. It says movement, but I'm saying riots are pushing a new law because it's written by Daily Mail, so they're a little woke. That will give police more tools to make arrests in the crime-riddled capital. Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser announced the Addressing Crime Trends Now Act on Monday, which includes policies to clarify what qualifies as an illegal neck restraint in efforts to tackle drug crime and retail theft. Fox 5 reported the announcement came as crime rates across the district continue to rise. Violent crime is up 41%. Robberies are up 70%. Homicides are up 33%. This is since the George Floyd riots. According to the city's most recent crime data, sex abuse reports, assaults with dangerous weapon reports, and property crimes are also up. All right, and this lady wants to get elected. It seems to me that if you want to reduce crime rates in Washington, D.C., you should fire Muriel Bowser. That's what should happen. And you should fire these council members or city commissioners, whatever they're called there, that sit and fight back against some of these laws. They're all woke, and they all need to go, in my opinion. Now, let me also bring you this news. So we're going to get into World War III, it appears. We haven't got a speaker yet. That may come to an end today with this guy, Mike Johnson. We've talked about that. Washington, D.C. mayor, all of a sudden she wants to reduce crime. That's nice. Now, this is interesting. So yesterday, Jenna Ellis is a colleague of ours right here on the Salem Podcast Network. But this is on Just the News. So former Trump attorney Jenna Ellis pleads guilty in Georgia 2020 election case. Jenna Ellis, former attorney for Donald Trump, pleaded guilty on Tuesday as part of a deal with Georgia prosecutors that involved alleged efforts to challenge the 2020 election results in favor of then-President Trump. Ellis read a tearful apology in court as she pleaded guilty to one count of aiding and abetting false statements and writings, quote unquote. The judge sentenced Ellis to 5 years probation and 100 hours of community service, and he ordered her to pay $5,000 in restitution and testify truthfully in the case if she is called to do so. She is the third Trump campaign attorney to plead guilty in a case following former Trump attorney Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesebro, but I believe it's Chesebro. Former Republican poll watcher Scott Hall reached a plea deal in the case last month as well. Trump and the 18 other people charged in Fulton County in relation to the alleged 2020 election scheme originally pleaded not guilty. These people are fighting for their survival. I saw a bunch of conservatives online yesterday. It amazes me how many. I tell you what, man, I can't stand this primary cycle. Because what's being revealed to me are there are a lot of people that get distracted and want to play the tough guy and stuff like that instead of focusing on the prize, and that's retaking the White House, hopefully keeping the House and gaining seats and taking back the Senate in 2024. And it seems to me, just like the left has Americans on the left and right fighting against each other so that they can gain more power, it seems to me that idiots within the conservative movement and the Republican Party are lashing out so nasty, so vitriolically and nasty and unnecessarily so against each other that surely it's going to divide people. Well, Carl, we'll all come together in the end. Really? Do you think people are that mature? I don't. Not based upon what I've seen online. It's absolutely insane. Well, Carl, that's online. Well, it's beyond online. I've seen it on TV. I've heard it in conversations. It's really got nasty between Republicans. And I tell you what, there's a lot of people that I don't like. But in the end, I want to defeat the left. And on the road that we're going on, man, we're making it a harder battle on ourselves. So I look at the stories like Jenna Ellis, and the question is whether or not she flipped. And listen, if she testifies truthfully to she believed one thing, and I heard some of the audio. Basically her tearful confession, if you will. She's scared beyond her mind. She's scared out of her wits. All of these people are. Consider all of these people that have done life the right way. Gone to school. Maybe they're Christians. They're white because they're hated. They worked for Trump, so they're hated. And then they have to go before a court that they know will send them away to jail for 10, 20, 30 years, no problem. Because they're in Fulton County. And they don't have Trump's money. It's always amazing to me how brave people are that have never been to jail. I went for a very short period of time. I never want to go back. Never. So when I see all these people, oh, she said she would do this with this one. Shut up. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Just trying to talk tough. Don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know how many people would quote unquote flip on Trump if they were faced with the Department of Justice or even a Fani Willis, who, by the way, it's obvious that Fani Willis overcharged, that she's trying to go for the big fish, right? But she's going to make the lives of the people that were associated with the big fish so miserable. So if they don't get funding to help them out and they got to ask for donations, I think a lot of people were saying to Jenna Ellis, you need to return it. I donated to her. You need to return. I'm not worried about her returning the money. I'm not. Because I think at the time she was facing what could be a defense worth $1 million easily, if she was to keep going in this process. And quite frankly, I want all of these people free. But when you get in front of a judge, when everything becomes real to you, and you're sitting there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to spend 10 years, 20 years, 30 years behind bars for a crime I didn't commit. Or I can cop a plea deal. I can serve probation. 99.99% of the fake conservative phonies out there that are attacking her would take the deal. I guarantee it. Don't be one of those fake phonies. We have enough on the left. We don't need them on the right. All right, now, let's move on. What else did Mark Meadows. Now that one was actually that occurred earlier. I didn't I didn't realize this, but it occurred earlier. It was reported yesterday. But anyway, so this is from Talking Points memo. So really brief here. I'll just share this before we get to our guest. The biggest news in the Trump prosecutions yesterday was that ABC News reported that Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was given immunity by Special Counsel Jack Smith and then testified to the D.C. grand jury investigating January 6th. A lot of confusion about what this means, what it reveals, according to Talking Points memo, and what remains unknown. The big point of contention over the course of the afternoon yesterday was whether this was Meadows flipping and becoming a witness against Trump. The answer is more nuanced than that. Meadows was compelled, or basically forced to testify, they say, or coerced, i.e., he did not do so willingly. Rather, prosecutors gave him immunity to testify, meaning they wouldn't prosecute him using anything incriminating in his own testimony. All right, so this gets them around him taking the Fifth Amendment. And it lets Meadows have a shot of maintaining his viability as a conservative mover and shaker. He was forced to do it. He wasn't a snitch, according to Talking Points memo. Now, when these people testify truthfully, it doesn't mean that they're flipping on Trump. Now, it could. They could say some incriminating things about Trump. But if he shares the truth and according to Meadows, basically, listen, he told Trump not to contest the election. So did Jared Kushner. And so if Trump believed the elections were stolen and he believed it with all of his heart, okay, so Meadows disagreed with him. That's not incriminating. So if Meadows testifies to that, then I really don't think it's a big deal. If he has something out there that's different, then I don't know. We'll wait and see. ABC News later updated its story to note that the Meadows testimony came back in March, way back in March. All right, so this just didn't happen yesterday, but it's being reported on now. ABC News had previously reported that Meadows testified to a grand jury in April in matters related to the Mar-a-Lago documents case. This suggests that Meadows' testimony was already baked in when Jack Smith indicted Trump in the J6 case back in August. All right. Donald Trump reacted to Mark Meadows' news in a way that is sure to get the attention of U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who already issued a limited gag order in the January 6th case to prevent exactly this kind of thing, but then paused it to consider whether to impose it while Trump is appealing her decision. And guys, all this is all part of the Democratic campaign. Ramp up the pressure. And you're going to put a lot of pressure on these witnesses because ultimately you want to take down Trump, because actually what's happening is these people are guilty of doing everything they're claiming Trump did. And so I'm not as mad as other people about Mark Meadows and Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell. If they testify truthfully, it is not necessarily flipping, because they could just say, we believe this, but we were his attorneys, at least in Jenna Ellis's case. Sidney Powell, I don't think she was officially his attorney. This is what we believed. This is what we recommended. But Trump believed this. Boom. All right. So they're free to tell the truth. It's as simple as that. All right, guys, listen. Now we're going to be joined by Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project, Queers for Palestine. Would there be such a thing in Gaza? We're going to be talking about that with our guest. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I'm joined by my guest, Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project. Terry, there's apparently Queers for Palestine. We've all, sadly, I'm sure you've watched some video. I've watched what I could stomach of some of the just straight up evil and the atrocities that Israelis have gone through. Over 30 Americans killed as well. Over 1,400 Israelis that were brutally murdered in ways that are just unthinkable and unspeakable. And yet right here inside of the United States, we have, it seems to be so overwhelming, the anti-Semitism that we're seeing across this country. I knew it was bad. It's even worse. And what's funny is, Terry, is I really didn't pay much attention to this until my producer, Tony, texted me and said, hey, you got to get Terry Schilling on to talk about these Queers for Palestine. And I'm like, Queers for Palestine? If they were in Gaza, I'm not sure that they would call themselves Queers for Palestine, Terry. So I want to get your initial response, and then we'll play some video here.
There's that common trope, Queers for Palestine is kind of like chickens for Colonel Sanders. I think we should start a voluntary deportation program for any queers or queer identifying people in America that want to go to Palestine. We will pay for your ticket. We will pay for your initial housing to just get out of our country and go live where you truly deserve to live. Honestly, like the amount of idiocy behind all of this, there's so much ignorance, but it's all the common denominator is you just have to hate America. You just have to hate Western civilization. You just have to hate everything that's good and true and based in reality in this world, and that's what builds ties this whole coalition together. It's the woke, it's the Palestinians, it's the Muslims, it's the trans, it's the LGBTs. They're all in it together because they hate America. That's the enemy, and that's what they want to destroy.
You know what's funny too, Terry? I really believe that a lot of these people want to avoid who the real enemies of America are, because they would be forced to look in the mirror and realize that they've been wrong all along. Their policies, their ideology, but they don't want to recognize the fact that Islamic jihadists are a real thing. They want to kill us. They want to destroy Western civilization, and a lot of these people are jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, no, it's a huge bandwagon. I mean, this is the crazy thing about this propaganda industry that we have, that we call our mainstream media, is they just create these hysterical cycles where people jump from fad to fad to fad to fad. 1 week it's climate change, the next week it's Palestine, the next week it's trans kids in South America. Like they invent issues to create hysteria, to create divisions, to divide all of us, and to deflect and misdirect from what we really should be focusing on. What we really should be focusing on is the fact that we're about to head into World War III. We should be focusing on the fact that Joe Biden and his son have been leveraging his political positions, his government, taxpayer-funded political positions to enrich themselves while smoking crack with hookers, right? Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of big issues that are facing this country, and all of this stuff is just a huge distraction. We're about to go into World War III, right? We're talking about going to war with Iran. We're talking about bombing Gaza. We're talking about all this crazy stuff. It's World War III. There's no other way to talk about this. Do we want World War III? Do we not? I don't know. But this whole Queers for Palestine thing, my goodness, like what a joke this is. Like this is the epitome of the left, the progressive left, is Queers for Palestine encapsulates everything. A group of people that would be hung and murdered and thrown off of buildings and fed to dogs, they want to support Palestine, the people that really oppress them. But guess what? They're going to ban travel to states like Florida, who basically just say you can't trans kids, you can't confuse them on gender in school, and you can't mutilate and chop up little kids. That's what we're going to do. You can't travel to Florida if you're a progressive, but you can travel to Palestine. These people are total morons, and they're evil. They're evil idiots.
Man, I absolutely love that. You're absolutely right. I think I'm going to start framing it that way. I appreciate it, Terry. But I want to go back to something you said just really, really briefly here. If you look at the Hamas charter, these people, gays, would not be treated kindly. I was being somewhat facetious, but in all seriousness, if they were to go to Gaza, they would not be treated kindly by the Arabs there. I hate calling it Palestine because there is no Palestine, but for the sake of the argument, it's a little easier. But just go back quickly to what you just mentioned. What would happen to gays if they were really around Islamic jihadists?
They would be brutally murdered. They would be sentenced to death. There's a plethora of things that these people do to LGBTQ, IAA plus, whatever it is now, that is horrendous, right? If you're gay and you're in Iran, they force you to undergo a sex change because of how unnatural homosexual relations are, right? That's just a few things. Like, they put you to death, they kill you, they sodomize you, they force sex changes and genital mutilation on you. Like, what are you actually working for if not for the destruction of humanity by supporting these groups that are just against America, that are just against Christianity. That's the common denominator. It's anti-God, it's anti-Christian, it's anti-America. I mean, these people are brutally treated in these nations, but they're more concerned about what's happening to protecting kids in Florida from these sex change procedures than they are about gays and LGBT members being thrown from roofs, being put to death, being forced to undergo sex changes. It's absurd, Carl, and we need to expose these people for the frauds and evil idiots that they are.
And one of the things that I have to say here, Terry, is I appreciate your clarity on this issue. I wish that we would have some Republicans and or conservatives that could speak clearly on these issues and push back. I can't stand the fact that we have Hamas sympathizers that are sitting in our Congress, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that we have. I don't think there's enough pushback against the Rashida Tlaibs, the Ilhan Omars, the AOCs. I feel like somebody should be at a podium every single day to tell these ladies to quit their jobs, to move to Gaza, to see what would happen to them if they were actually living there. But having said that, let's play this video here. I want to get your reaction to this, Terry. Let's go ahead and roll it, Gabe, por favor.
Imagine a mind virus so powerful that queers and gays who would be thrown off of watchtowers by Hamas march for the same people who would do the chucking, because their enmity, their hatred towards America is so great that they march in lockstep against those who are supported by the government.
Palestine will be free, from the river to the sea, from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free, from the river to the sea. Palestine, free, free Palestine has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. The occupation has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. The occupation has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. The occupation has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho.
As I said before, chickens for KFC, cows for Burger King, really more like fruits for puree. But puree is essentially what is in the minds of these people. They have been so hypnotized, they have been so indoctrinated by the leftist dogma that they can't see reality for what it is. That I think 49% of Gen Z only disapprove, meaning the majority, 51%, approve of Hamas's actions and claim that they were justified. The murder and slaughter of innocent babies and concert goers, these aren't soldiers. And yet they sit there and march because their enmity towards the United States is so great that anything that is in opposition to the colonial...
Gabe, we can go ahead and cut this video here. I didn't realize that it ran as long, but basically he said, I mean, much of the same stuff you said. Quite frankly, we didn't even need the video, Terry, having listened to you. But I mean, seriously, these morons that are marching down the street and talking about... what did they say about... oh, my God, now I'm forgetting. I'm having a brain fart here. But basically, Israel is... somehow withholding or keeping these people confined to Gaza or something to that effect. I can't even remember how they phrase it. Or it's insane.
Yeah, no. Look, the number one rule, anytime you're talking to a leftist, you just have to not trust anything that they're saying, because all they do is lie. Even when they aren't lying, they're still not telling you the full truth, right? We're in constant battles on the campaign front, running campaign ads against these guys that are mutilating our kids, that are indoctrinating them in schools. And when we run the campaign ads, the news media will do fact checks, right? And they'll say, well, this isn't happening here in this state. Well, yeah, that's what our ad says. Our ad says that the candidate wants to sign a law that would do this, right? So they just lie. They're Marxists, and they believe that they are justified in lying, in cheating, in stealing, in causing physical damage to people. You know, they burned down our whole country for a whole summer over the George Floyd riots, a fentanyl addict, right? And the autopsy comes out recently and says that he actually wasn't murdered. He died of natural causes, of basically a drug overdose combined with years long of destruction that his body underwent from his drug use. They just want to destroy. They will take anything they can and use it as a hammer to bash in the skull of the American nation. That's what they want to do. They're hell-bent on destroying us all. It's not, I hate saying that they want to destroy America because it doesn't really hit home as much anymore. They want to destroy Americans. They want to destroy you and me. America and the Constitution, those are just things that keep them from being able to control us. What they really want is they want to control us so that they can destroy us for their insane human secular religion. This is a religious war, Carl. I think you know that as much as I do. It's a religious war, and that's what
you
this
know
is
what's
all
funny,
about.
and we have this other video that I want to play for you real quickly because I know that you have to go. But Simon, I believe his last name is pronounced Simon Atiba, basically showed some of these protests in New York City, and he was like, "Look at the size of this crowd. Of these crowds. What really explains this?" And I tweeted back at him, "It's their religion." I mean, people don't understand their hatred for the West. It is national suicide. It's personal suicide, quite frankly, because these Islamic jihadists would kill every single one of us if they had the opportunity to do so. But it seems to me, I don't believe a lot of Americans, sadly, in the media, even in our military, understand that this is a religion. And just real quick, I did a podcast on that Derek Chauvin thing. I was arguing a couple of years back that the guy shouldn't go to jail based on evidence that I had already seen from I think it was lawenforcement.com or something like that. They outlined why this guy shouldn't go to, whatever. So I'm glad conservatives are sharing this information now. But I literally written articles that people wouldn't publish. I won't say the names of the places, but at the time they wouldn't publish them. So I hate to say it, but there's a lot of cowardice conservatives out there too, just to be honest. But Terry, the mainstream media had a field day on this, on how nicely Hamas treated this lady while she was kidnapped in their tunnels, and her husband is still missing. She talked about some of the horrors that she experienced and how it was hell living under the tunnels, how they were a spider web of I'm just going off of what I read in the summary earlier, just a spider web, if you will, of tunnels underneath ground. So it is a very huge, I don't know, just a huge tunnel network that Hamas has. But you had some CNN reporters talking about how kindly she was treated. They gave her soap. I mean, they kidnapped her, but at least they gave her soap. I mean, this is where we're at, Terry.
Yeah, no, they're going to run cover for the most evil and indefensible things. And it's not even as bad as it's going to get, Carl. Like, I tell people all the time, you think it's bad now. It's going to get so much worse. Right? Like, we don't even what I think America's biggest weakness is that we don't think any of this stuff can come here.
Yep.
Like, we take what we have here, all the peace and prosperity that we had for the last century, we took it for granted. And now these guys have organized, they've engaged, they've taken over our institutions, and they're now in charge. And they are not tolerant. They preach tolerance so that they could be accepted and so that they could take over these institutions. But now that they're in power, there is no tolerance. They are not letting us take back these institutions. They are not letting us take back power. They want to destroy this country, and they are going to maximize the power that they have. The media is going to get so much worse. If you can imagine that, the media is going to get so much. Think about how much America was transformed just between 2010 and 2020. It's not the same country. And it won't even be the same country as it is today in 5 years, right? Things are accelerating. They're falling apart faster and faster, and no one knows what the hell is going on. And that's because in civil societies, that's what happens. Things fall apart very quickly once societal trust breaks down. So I just tell everyone, gird your loins, prepare for the worst, and prepare for something even worse than what you can imagine as being the worst, because it's going to get really, really bad.
Yeah, Terry, I got to tell you, I didn't do enough studying, but the podcast that I was preparing for today is everything you need to get ready to get ready for a terrorist attack. Because I'm telling you what, we've been looking at the fentanyl deaths across the country. Over 72,000 special interest aliens that we know of have entered the country from hot zones, if you will, from countries that harbor terrorism or terrorists. And it's going to happen. So you're absolutely right. Brace yourself. Terry, listen, I know you have to go. Tell people where they can go to find you both online and to help out with your organization.
It's very simple. It's just AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. We are the NRA, but for families. They do guns. We do families. We help protect parental rights, protect the innocence of children. We fight online porn to protect kids online from that. We've made great progress there. We fight the transgender threat to our kids. But we treat families like a special interest group. So check us out. It's AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. If you want to follow me on social media, across every social media outlet, it's just Schilling 1776, and you can find me there.
All right, Terry, we definitely appreciate your time. I'm going to be filling in a lot for some of these national hosts, so I'm going to make sure that I get you on to talk about some of these things. So appreciate everything you're doing, man.
Thanks so much, Carl.
All right, God bless you, man. Take care.
God bless.